All right. Now, there are other challenges that come with this common external tariff, particularly in its categorization.
Okay, let's even look at it from the entire trade liberalization scheme of Ecowas. There are a whole lot of issues. I've talked about the Anglophone and the Francophone. Then there's no proper payment scheme that will make transactions easy between these two areas. Then, of course, all of us are involved in the export of raw agro-produce. The entire ECOWAS need to do something about that. Then, of course, there's also commitment of members. For how long have we had about free movement of persons? I don't know if you have crossed any of the borders and see how free the movements are actually over there. So these are all issues. Then, of course, you look at road transport, look at railways, look at aviation, power, and ICT. All these are issues that are holding us back, that are going to affect all this implementation. But let's come to the CET itself. The categorization, you have essential goods at zero. The question is, what are essential goods? Is it likely going to be interpreted to mean the same thing across the entire region? This is an issue. Then the goods of necessity, raw materials, and specific inputs are 5%. What is raw material in one place can be finished goods at another end. Yeah. So how are you going to handle that? Things like resins. Resins are finished goods, but they're also raw material. So then, of course, you have the final consumption. No, intermediate goods are 10%. Then final consumption is 20%. Now, well, I think we'll have to get to the bridge before we cross it. It is when implementation starts that we are really going to see the challenges arising from all this.
Now, with all these challenges you've tried to reel out here, is this going to be a sustainable policy, really?
I think it should be. It has worked elsewhere. It is not rocket science. It should be able to work here. The only thing is this me, myself, and I attitude, and then every country, once they have a little advantage, they want to use it, and the rest of them, which I think Nigeria has done very well. Because if we were to muzzle the rest of the nations with the size of our economy, I'm sure we would have, but we have always played this big brother position, tried to make sure we carry everybody along. So it is possible, and Nigeria holds the power to make it work, which is the reason why I think Nigerian government and people are trying to make sure they concede one thing or the other, in spite of the disadvantages that will come with it, to make it work. So, yes, it can work. These challenges can be overcome, but it needs commitment. It's not about the papers. It's not about the president's meeting or minister's meeting and the rest of them. It is when we get to the street, when we get to the implementation, that's where the challenge is.
Now, what's the connection between the CET and the Economic Partnership Agreement?
Well, the CET will further bring the economies together. And the coming together of the economy of the sub-region will make it easier for the EPA negotiation. You recall that Nigeria and South Africa, the two biggest economies, refused to go further. Smaller African countries, and some of them within the Ecowas region, wanted to go ahead and sign an interim EPA with the EU. But, of course, to the EU, these economies are not the ones you are pursuing. All put together, they are not as big as the two that you are looking at. So, which is what made the interim EPA not to work. So, the coming together, if we are able to come together and implement CET, it means that we can also speak with one voice at the EPA negotiations, and that will make it easier for the EPA negotiation to end sooner. Because the truth is, our exports are also suffering. You know, some countries accepted 80% liberalization, I think 70%, while EU is asking for 80%. So maybe with the coming together of the countries under the CET, maybe they take a common position of maybe 75%, they meet halfway, and then have it implemented. But it has a lot to do with it, because if you have a situation where all the members of the sub-region are speaking in different tongues, then the EPA negotiation will be stalled.
Yeah. Now, the CET makes provision for the protection of some sectors. What are these sectors?
Well, it will be sectors of priority to countries. It's really not a very general this thing. For example, we have talked about manufacturing sector in Nigeria. Of course, in almost all the... But the point is also, you are also not allowed to get to the level of protectionism. Yes, you have to protect it to some extent under the WTO regulations. For example, you know that even under the export incentives and the rest of them, agri incentives, cash incentives are not allowed under the WTO rules right now. So all these are... So then there are other sectors as classified by countries, and all these, of course, came on the table during the discussion. So there are a bit of concession. The only thing is that things like waivers are no longer allowed.
Okay.
You know, we do a lot of waivers in this country.
Exactly.
So that's one. I think that's also a good development, because it means that if we import the same thing, we pay the same thing. Nobody gets advantage over each other's. I think it's the negotiation has been tight, and everything is set. But let's go to the implementation points and see how it works.
All right. Now, looking at Nigerian economy under the CET, what is the outlook like?
At the beginning, it might not look too good. But we have a lot to gain in the long run if the CET works. Because when you become a kind of common economy of 260 million people, you know what that means to investors. You know what that means to the external, in terms of foreign direct investment and the rest of them. And of course, the bulk of that 260 million is from here. So at the end of the day, we stand to gain. But in the short run, we will have to contend with some losses here and there in terms of revenue. But it will be tough, because we are talking about oil prices going far, far below where they have ever gotten. Then your currency devaluated. And then, of course, you can no longer collect the amount of your expectation from duty and the rest of them. But I guess they may have considered all that in the current budget, because that's exactly what the information from the Federal Minister of Finance is saying. It means that had been considered and factored into the budget. If that is correct, then it means that we won't feel too much impact.
All right, let's just hope so. But then, are there implications for other, sectors of the economy, such as agriculture, tourism, for instance? Yeah,
there are implications. Of course, the point is that by the time you succeed in CET, the tourism industry is also going to be affected, because there's a ripple effect on other sectors of the economy. For example, we're talking about infrastructure. If infrastructures are provided so that the manufacturing sector and the rest of them can function, of course, the hospitality industries and tourism will be positively. So the multiplier effect of implementation is greater than whatever negative effect we stand to gain. Then, of course, the payment system, which we are saying will be part of what will facilitate it. If you have it in place, every other sectors will be affected. Then, of course, issues of ICT. Then you are likely going to see improvement in aviation, improvement in road transportation, and the rest of them. Once this goes, then generally foreign investment will come, improve those areas, and the entire Ecowas will smile, hopefully.
All right. Now, any advice for investors on how to cope with perhaps some of the challenges that will definitely come with the CET?
Well, it's about planning. It's about planning. Because from what we saw coming in 2014, what we saw coming for this year, means that a lot of budgets and plans and projections needed to have been reworked by now. Just like the National Assembly is saying, bring down the cutoff point of the oil to $40 or $45, going by the reality on ground. Even though there are expectations that the oil price is not going to remain where it is, that it will hopefully go. But I think it's about planning, about changing strategies, and then, because it will come with challenges, it will also come with opportunities. Protect yourself from the challenges, and then get ready to take advantage of the opportunities.
And opportunities.
That's
and then when we weigh the challenges and opportunities, perhaps the opportunities are bigger.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Obiora. It's been an interesting conversation. Well, we've been looking at the Ecowas Common External Tariff, which actually the implementation begins this month, actually January 1, 2015. So I think the stakeholders are trying to put everything, put everything together to ensure that the common external tariff is implemented very, very well to suit every other person or country concerned. Well, that's it on today's edition of the program. Thank you very much for being part of it. Tomorrow is another day. Do have a wonderful day.